Rafey is originally from Pakistan. Being a student back in his country, he arrived to Canada alone to graduate as an engineer, without even knowing that he was going to stay permanently and start a whole new life. In this interview, Rafey shares that having the right attitude can help you overcome every challenge that comes in your way. Enjoy! So hi, Rafey. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really happy and glad that you decided to participate with us. I'm really eager to start listening to your story. You come from Pakistan, so please, if you can just introduce yourself a bit and tell us why did you decide to move to Canada and how it happened?
Yeah, so my name's Rafey Ibrahim. I've been in Canada actually. It's hard when you put it into perspective since 2004 now. Um, I, um, I was born and raised in UAE. Ethnically, I'm from Pakistan. So I've always, I guess, I feel comfortable in a setting where I am more of an immigrant or a temporary resident. Because UAE or Emirates, again, is a very expatriate, high on the number of expatriates from different countries, people from the subcontinent, from third world, moving there for better job opportunities. So I was born there, raised there, did all my schooling, and then unfortunately, once you get to a certain age, 18, then you either have to find work there or enroll in one of their institutions, which they don't have very many. So at that point, I guess I was faced with the option of either going back to Pakistan or moving somewhere, where I can get better education. And so at the time, I applied to the UK first, and Canada was the second option. But it's for international students, UK is a bit pricey, and so Canada was a good option at the time. I did get my acceptances, and so I moved here as a student, basically, right after finishing my high school at the age of 17, to do university. And basically, the focus at that time was just to get through university and not about the next steps and what's in store. So it was just get through the next 4 years and hopefully finish my education in the prescribed amount of time. So yeah, after moving here as a student, there were some challenges. I mean, just culturally, there were things which I wasn't very used to. I did have some extended family, so that always helps. And so, and then I also found people who came from the Emirates just like me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I used to be with them, and then stayed with them off campus as well. Anyhow, that's in the history now, but I've been here since. I'm working now, and in fact, I have a wife and son. So that's in a nutshell the experience I've gone through.
Yeah, well, UK was your first option, and why was it the first option? Because it was closer. Because yeah.
Proximity definitely was the big one. I in my high school did the British syllabus of their through Cambridge University.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have saved me 1 year if I enrolled in a university in the UK. It would have been 3 years as opposed to 4 years in Canada or elsewhere. But again, price was a bit of a deterrent, and I knew that I had some family in Canada, even though it was further. But that gave me a bit of a comfort feeling, that maybe I will have people I know there. Um,
Yeah.
and so that, coupled with the more affordable education, was the big motivation for.
Of course, definitely. So let me understand a bit more. Like you moved as a student, and it was gonna be kind of it wasn't permanent. Actually, you were gonna finish school and then go back and continue with your life.
Correct.
So I believe your mindset was different from when you decided to stay forever in Canada.
Yeah,
So what happened there?
Yeah, in fact, that's how, like, I was granted a student visa, which is only for the duration of your education. But what was promising was, I guess, towards the tail end, into the second last year of my education, I did a bit of an internship or a co-op work term
Mm-hmm.
here. Um, in my area of education, I'm an engineer by qualification, and so I did 4 months work term for my current employer. I'm actually working for them still.
Wow.
And so I realized, my potential is better suited. I have gone through the formal education here. It only makes sense if I just transition into a work life um,
Mm-hmm.
that is more geared towards my learning. And I, over the course of my education, got used to the life here, made friends. Um, this became more comfortable in some ways, and I got more used to this. And the second challenge of being from the Emirates is, unless and until I don't find work there, there's no means for me to go back, right? Like, I'm not a citizen, naturalized citizen, like I am in Canada, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, UAE, the GCC countries in general have very stringent rules when it comes to granting someone citizenship. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be born, or ethnically you have to be from that region. Um, you cannot, the fact that you were born there, even that doesn't qualify you for citizenship there. So it was, either I maybe go back to Pakistan, or I continue life here in Canada. And it worked out. I didn't have as many challenges, like I said, the work term, and then subsequently after graduation, continuing to work for the same employer. So life seems very grateful, I guess, and things have come easy to me, I feel.
Oh, I'm super glad because mostly, for example, I believe cultural shock, taking like everything else, like the administrative documents and all the paperwork that you might have had to do during, like, while you were a student and after you became a permanent resident and after you became a citizen, all the paperwork, we know that we have to pass it and it's a big challenge. But I believe you coming from another very different culture to an Occidental culture when everything is so different, I wonder if there was something that you felt that you were not belonging or it made you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I would say that was the first year of my university education. Like, the first 3 months, 4 months, I, in fact, seriously considered the idea of, just maybe going back, because the
Oh,
cultural shock was just so much. And just moving into a student residence or dorm like setting, I was too used to the comforts of home. So that was a bit of a challenge. But once I got through the first year, I moved in with people like myself, so we can talk to each other about our challenges. We can benefit from each other being there. That helped. But yeah, the first year I seriously entertained the thought of going back a few times in the first 2 or 3 months.
what
Uh,
was the biggest, like, what was the biggest challenge? What was the biggest cultural shock for you?
just I guess UAE is a very sheltered society in some ways. I mean, there's stringent laws that people barely, they kind of conform to a um, certain kind of life, certain kind of rules, and you don't see anything outside of that. In Canada, I mean, I got to experience people from all sorts of, all walks of life.
Mm.
Uh, and then just the transition, like I said, in a setting where I have to look after myself, my finances, um, get familiar with the banking, and be in charge of my own affairs at the university. It seemed like a tall order at the time, but having some family close by helped, because like for the first 2 or 3 months, I would go back on the weekends and spend time with them, and just I cannot imagine not having that. And maybe if that wasn't the case, then I could have even gone back. I don't know. It's hard to say now.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
it's incredible how your network can actually, as you said, shelter you in a way that you no longer feel so alone in every step that you take during your process. Even if you were, for example, telling me about your experience as a student, having all these people around you, even if you were going back every weekend and just letting everything out
Yeah.
and talking it helped you so much to actually not deciding to go back.
Yeah.
So after,
It's the first period, maybe even the first year, first few months that are challenging from not just my experience. I can see from some of my extended family who've come here as immigrants, right? Like um, making sure your finances are in order, making sure you get your driver's license, or making sure you figure your way around the transit system. I mean, these seem like easy things, but for someone who's not used to them, it
mm-hmm.
it is a significant change in the way they're used to dealing with things.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like, even if, for example, you're used to taking the bus, the schedule is so different that you no longer know. I remember, like, the time that I went to, well, first of all, in Mexico, we don't have any order in the schedule of the bus. So just we have to lift our hand and the bus will stop. And here you have to be on time and you run to the bus, otherwise it's going to leave. Even if you are just arriving, they're going to leave because
Yeah.
they have their schedule. So all these things, you are saying it, they sound so easy, but at the same time they are like all the time. This is a challenge. This is telling you you are different, you are not complete in a certain way. Like the integration takes time even for you to be able to take the subway or the bus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, if you put them in words, it doesn't sound like much, but just transitioning mentally, you are still getting used to a certain place. And then, yeah, all these new processes, they add up. And so it's important to have a good support system during this time.
Definitely. What's a good support system for you?
So like from in the Pakistani culture, like I have a lot of cousins, and any distant relative, I will call him a cousin. Uh, and just by virtue of that familial connection, I am comfortable enough to give them a call and be like, "Oh, I hear you're related to me such and in a such and such way. Would you be open to meeting up at some point?" And they invite you over. Um, uh, Anyhow, I'm exaggerating, but I had, I had. Couple of aunts, my mom's sisters. They were in the GTA at the time. Um, a few other distant relatives, and my mom actually reached out to them that my son is moving here. It would be appreciated if you can keep an eye out during this time. And so um, for them to just have me over, so for example on the weekends, or just giving me a call every now and then, is there anything you need? I think mentally it felt relieving in a lot of ways, even though I didn't really call them about specific things, but just knowing that there's someone I can talk to, uh,
Yeah,
in a, that itself was huge.
yeah, yeah. So having a family, at least you have someone there, because the reality is that the majority of immigrants, when they move to another country, they don't have these people waiting for them, or at least they might have a few friends, but they are not that connected in the way that you're just describing.
Hmm.
So what happened after you finished your studies and then you decided to stay? Then what was the click there?
So things actually worked out almost, like I never had to kind of sit in a corner and ask myself, what do I want to do with my life? I got a conditional offer, even before graduating, that if you want to come work for us after graduation, you can do so. And so I did that, and so it's almost like I graduated, I waited for my work permit to arrive, and then I started working. Um, but I think that click happened over the course of the 3 or 4 years of just going through the education and getting more and more familiar with the life here, um,
Mhm.
building friends and networks of other people through school. Um, so it wasn't a single day or time I can pinpoint, but just uh, getting familiar through the course of the education, and then having things transition seamlessly from a study permit to a work, from a study setup to a work setup. That helped as well. Obviously, if there was if I know some of my friends did have to go, they had a bit of a challenge because 2008, we know about the financial crisis. That's when I graduated, so a lot of them couldn't find work right away, and so for them, they did odd jobs for a bit, and they tell me now that they seriously considered going back. Is it really worth it? um, but fortunately for me, I didn't have those challenges, uh,
Mhm.
so that certainly helped. But yeah, it would be hard to pinpoint a single time um, where the click happened. It over time.
But I believe there might be something that tells you, oh my God, this is forever. Like, you're no longer saying, okay, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't go well, I will go back.
Hmm. That was the first 3 or 4 months, and I it's just a dorm setting was very challenging for me. Kind of sharing space, and just people were, for example, playing music too loud. I was always master of my destiny. Like, I do things when I want, how I want. And so being in that setup was a bit challenging. So I tried my best actually to even see if I can opt out of the student housing. I was unsuccessful. And so I figured, you know what, I just need to get through the first semester. Um, and even if that means that I see more of my family on the weekends or friends as often as I could, even if it means that I try and spend more time at the library or trying to be more active with student activities just to keep my mind on something. So that's how I got through that first phase. But yeah, that would have been the point where it seemed like eternity. Things are not changing.
And how has been your, like, the experience with the people with you? Because in an interview, I was talking to this guy, and he was telling me that everything is a question of attitude. So a lot of immigrants, sometimes they arrive to another country and they feel like they have to go on a very low profile,
Mhm.
almost to become invisible, so they don't get noticed. And things, I believe, go harder for them because they don't arrive to this challenge of approaching people. You were saying that you were like going out, making friends, contacting this and that other. So how was it for you?
Um, yeah, no, I kind of get that. But like when I said I was going out, now that I look back, I was associating more with people that I saw these parallels with, right? If they were international students, if they came from, say, that part of the world where I was from, if they spoke the same language. Um, so I was associating with them more so. I find now, and that was probably because I was trying to not remind myself that maybe I am, say, a minority in this setting. Uh, but yeah, now that I look back, that was the feature. I was associating more with like people who had a lot of similarities with me. And fortunately, as a student, it's easy to find people from all sorts of backgrounds. But yeah, maybe if you're a new immigrant and you don't know too many people, how do you go and find people like that? I can imagine it's very challenging if you um, if you if you're not a student, or if you are, say, like a if you move with a family even, right, and you don't have
Yeah.
consequences. Fortunately, the school was easy, and they made it easy for us as well. Like for me and the others that applied through the Emirates, they had a bit of a kickoff session for us in Emirates. So before we left and arrived here, we actually had a few contacts that we knew that we will run into. So the universities helped make that transition easy for us.
Hmm.
So students definitely get it easy in that sense.
Yeah, I believe that's why a lot of immigrants decide to go back to university. Of course, it's to revalidate their own professions or their own studies, but at the same time, it gives you um, eh, more space, a secured space for you to meet other people and to start finding all those who are similar to you, and then get together in a
Yeah,
community, right?
yeah.
And well, you were telling me that you're married and you have a kid. So
Hmm.
how is it to be a parent in another country?
Um, it's actually great. And my wife, I mean, she's a second, third generation Canadian, so we are. I guess our marriage is intercultural, and our fourth generation. She just corrected me. So my our son, I guess he has those two backgrounds now that he associates with, and um, that is the beauty. I mean, instead of looking at it as the other, just try to focus more on the common aspects and realize that there's more things in common with other people than the dissimilar aspects, right?
Hmm.
And so, I mean, um, I came here. I had my sets of challenges, but now that I've settled, and um, my wife, I guess, has a better appreciation of some of the challenges that I or people in similar experiences go through just by conversation. And I know, I guess, more about the challenges for her of how to maybe deal with people that have maybe moved from a certain different kind of a setup, how they perceive things, and how we can both make the transition easy for each other.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm married to a Canadian as well, so I believe for me it was kind of, I knew that I have to adapt to my new life, but when he started being with me, I believe because he never planned to be with someone from another country. I don't believe someone actually thinks his or her life that they are going to marry to someone from another country. So
Mhm.
until he got to be with me, he actually discovered so many other ways of lifestyle, and actually I taught him Spanish, and now
Yeah.
he speaks Spanish. So how has it been with you?
And it's the same for us, like I'm getting to know more about her and more about her heritage, and
Hmm.
she's doing the same. I would argue maybe she's probably doing it more. And we've traveled to Pakistan even together, and she's gotten to meet my extended family, and that helps break stereotypes, I'm sure, for both of
Definitely.
us, right?
Yeah, there's where I wanted to go. There's where I wanted to go, because I believe in this kind of relationships where are mixed cultures, sorry, you can get to appreciate and adapt and adopt other ways and lifestyles without having actually to be in conflict one to the other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no conflict. There are times, I mean, but we talk about them and we negotiate, we compromise. But that's life, um, but this has never been like a bone of contention.
Hmm.
This
Yeah.
is I'm different. This is how you are different, and we cannot we cannot meet in the middle. That's never been the case.
Yeah. But I believe it's in every marriage, you have to deal with that and negotiate. It's not about the culture. Otherwise, they wouldn't be with us, right?
Yeah,
They know that they are going into another culture. So if it was the problem, they wouldn't be there.
yeah, no, that's true. But
Yeah.
yeah, like definitely, like our, for example, us coming together, like our families too now know of each other. And my mother, for example, she visits every now and then. So she has a better appreciation for the Canadian lifestyle, and my in-laws have a better appreciation for life in Emirates or Pakistan. What
Mhm. How is it for them having you so far?
So my parents, I do obviously try to keep in touch with them, and they do visit every year as a minimum, um, or we try and make plans so we can see more of each other. My in-laws are very close to where we live currently, so that helps to have like a support system for my son, and even for my wife's sanity sometimes. Um so yeah, like family has always been something I knew I can fall back on, and that is still the same. That hasn't changed.
That's great. Were they surprised that you were gonna get married? Like when your wife went and introduced you, were there like eyes like this?
No, it did require some discussions, and they're used to approaching marriage in a certain way. So as long as I guess you try your best to honor that process, or that um, you know uh, build their confidence over time, they realize that maybe okay, he is serious about this, he does value this, and so they try and work with you. But yeah, I mean, for them, they I see through their eyes sometimes, how the cultural um, um, can put you in circumstances like my mom sees things in a certain light, whereas my in-laws would see it from a different lens. Not
Yeah.
necessarily one is right or the other, but it's just they're just so used to doing things a certain way. uh, but no, I think in this process they have a better appreciation of each other and what the expectations are culturally, um, and a lot of the onus is on us to make sure we make that transition or make that easy for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the maturity with that you took it, all your relationship and how you presented yourselves, and as well like bringing your wife to your family for the first time and telling them, I'm not marrying a person from my own country, I'm marrying a person from a different country, and um, uses and styles are different, but we are the same maybe in our heart and soul, and this is what counts, right?
Absolutely. And like her going to meet my extended family, they realize, okay, she values us, what we think about, like she's empowering us. So they want to associate with you, they want to get to know you. So it's about
Yeah.
reciprocating. You take one step, I take one step, and we get to know each other in the process.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And congratulations to both of you, because this is not something that happens very easily. And I'm not talking about this very cultures so different from each other, but even, for example, from one city to another, there are so many things that happen that sometimes it's not possible. And is there, or what are three advices, or is there an advice of the biggest one that you could give an immigrant? What could it be?
um, I mean, it's easier to say this, but you're not in this alone. um, and just coming to terms with that is empowering in and of itself. That, you know what, I had an accident today, I don't have work, but there's probably still someone out there who's going through the similar challenges, just and I shouldn't give in and maybe, feel helpless.
Mm-hmm.
I should realize that this is a phase and it will come to pass. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's easier said than done. Just knowing no one is in it alone. There's a lot of people who go through similar challenges and they find their way. Um, so why can't you? It's just a temporary phase and hopefully it will come to pass.
Yeah, yeah, it always passes, and there are other challenges ahead. And like, if life was so steady, it wouldn't be exciting, right?
Yeah.
So there are always challenges. If it's not for migration thing, or for professional growth, or for even personal growth, that you have to face other things. And let's say that we go back, I don't know, I don't know how many years, 10 years, 12 years,
Yeah.
like before you were here in Canada,
Mhm.
and you didn't even imagine that you were going to move out. What would you say to yourself today?
Yeah, I mean, what did you do to deserve this? Is what I did an easy ride, but like I said, I shared the same courses and some of my roommates. For example, 2008 was a challenging year. If you were graduating or looking for work, the financial crisis, that's when it hit. Um, so yeah, they were considering going back. They were considering going back to school. They were doing odd jobs. I didn't have any of those challenges. Yeah, uh, I don't know what went uh, what went wrong or right there, but yeah, just I think I got it all laid out in a plate.
Yeah, that's great, right? I believe, again, I believe it's a lot of percentages. It was that you had the good attitude to face all the circumstances, that you found and you looked for help when you needed it, that you didn't stay just static, and you didn't quit. I believe it was your attitude who made you like, brought you all those treasures.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I think I find a lot of there are a lot of good examples too. If you look around, it is those initial years. They are the more formative years. If you stick it out, if you have to do multiple jobs, if you have to do courses on weekends, part time, it is important, and that effort or that exertion doesn't go unrewarded, I find. So especially during the initial days, it's important to make sure that what you do today will have a significant impact down the road. So just put your head down and try to
Yeah.
keep at it.
Yeah, so don't give up. And for example, for you, it wasn't for sure that you were gonna stay in another country, but at least when you decided to do it, you went through it just straight to it, and you didn't quit, and that's great. So I thank you so much for this time that you offered me today, and all the experiences that you just shared. I believe you are going to inspire a lot of people, because of course, it's a very big challenge to move to another country, but coming from another very different culture to other different kinds of way, like thinkings and stuff like that, makes it even harder.
Yeah.
But you were able to pass through all those things, and look at yourself now, married with a kid and with a very stable job, and super successful. This just can send the message to other people who might be from Pakistan or from other countries, that everything is possible when you want it, having the good attitude and willingness. Thank you so much for your time, Rafey, and see you next time.
Perfect. Thanks, Anne.